Welcome, 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 welcome. It's one of those things. I've said this before. How do you start these things? Also, what's the best way of starting off a show? And I tend to think that, you can have a big splash, but we're not into big splashes. We just do it nice and calm. But anyway, thanks for joining me. This is, as you know, I just want to go onto here. This is the GTM Reset Show, live show. And really, I hope you've had a good week so far. If not, well, hopefully, this will brighten up your day just a bit. Because we're going to be talking about the reasons why gated content slows down selling to enterprise prospects, as well as SMEs. Nobody's kind of immune to this. And we've also got some quick fixes, which you should like. So what we're going to cover is first a bit of news, then our main topic about, like I said, about why enterprise buyers avoid gated content and why B2Bs need to stop doing that. And leading on from that, I want to kind of go over the issues regarding BDRs and the actual costs, because those two things are actually connected, as well as the kind of the MarTech illusion that we've all been immersed in, and really look at some of the solutions and activities that you can begin scaling up your business. So we start with some news, because this is really important. And it sets up the whole point of today's show. 6 weeks ago, we kicked off an awareness campaign, and it was called the Revenue Reset. It was 3 main PDFs. So this wasn't some kind of, polished. Hang on a second. I've got two things. Two things are going on. I've got some buttons here, just because this is all part and parcel of what we're communicating. It's not just I'm going to come and communicate what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that. The point of what I'm doing is we have technology, of course. It's to demonstrate an element of authenticity in what I'm doing, and some things go right, some things go wrong. Some things you just kind of need to, that thing that's in the wrong way, in the wrong place. I need to move that down there. And what is he doing? I'm moving a foot pedal, and the foot pedal can stop and start my teleprompter. And if it's in the wrong place, when you're doing this kind of thing, you need everything at your fingertips. So I've got on in front of me, I've got laptop, I've got some other buttons which can stop and start, and I can do this and change what we're looking at and looking at the different kind of formats. And so it's like rubbing your tummy and patting your head, that kind of thing. So anyway, so when you see me kind of look around, I'm just trying to get things organised. But in your case, when you are doing it, excuse me, if you've got a couple of people having a chat, I would not expect either of those two people to be doing any of this. Somebody else would do it. So, but that's part and parcel of all what we're talking about. So So back to the story. So we haven't got. It's not some kind of agency-driven campaign with a big media, big kind of huge paid budget behind it. What we did is we're not going out and buying attention. That's the point. We're not, we purposely, not throwing money at LinkedIn ads or Google ads and retargeting and all the rest of it, because this is so important, because anybody could do that. So we created a series of PDFs, put them on the website, made them all open access, and started talking about the ideas and stuff that we're doing. So it's like no free gifts, no clickbait, no kind of fake scarcity, buy to get this now, enter your details to access it. There's nothing, no tricks, nothing. Just straight documents saying what we think, what we've observed, and saying what's gone wrong in B2B and what needs to change. Now, here's the kicker. We've had over 600 downloads. Now, what I'm going to do, I just need to just go on to Google Analytics, because if you look at this, this one here, that is a week. It's the 14th to the 20th. It's 223 downloads. And right now, if I just refresh Google Analytics on there, that are 640 downloads. You have to think about that, because people could look at that number and think, well, you can either pick it up or underplay it or misunderstand it. But if this was a consumer campaign for some, I don't know, selling trainers or gadgets or whatever, 600 might not sound a lot. But we're not dealing with consumers who are going to be clicking around on a Saturday afternoon. We're dealing with specifically B2Bs, and we're dealing with, you know, commercial people at the end of the day. You know, business owners, founders, directors, CEOs, and senior people in business who don't spend their days downloading business PDFs for fun. So when you get over like 600 downloads in 6 weeks without paid media, that's not nothing. That means there are hundreds of businesses choosing to spend time with our type of thinking. And so, you know, you look at that, and this pattern really matters. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal, because it shows things are not what they seem. Of course, you know, it started off slowly, like a lot of things, you know. But this is B2B, and so you expect it to be slow. People don't wake up on a Monday morning and think, oh, do you know what? Let's go and change our go-to-market model. So it's a bit of a trickle, a few downloads, a few clicks, a few documents being consumed, and a couple of blips. And then, like I said, in last week, it's like 223 in 1 week. You have to think about this. You have to think about what have been our expectations. This is where it gets really interesting, because it tells you that the activities would tell me the activities compounding. I mean, everything we do is compounding. The PDF, PDF's the live show, the shorts. Then we do clips and social posts and podcasts. Don't forget we do a podcast, so you can you can look at that as well. And a weekly email going out to a really tiny group of people, and all of it stacks up. One thing introduces the next. So, you know, someone sees a social post, then finds a PDF, and someone downloads the PDF and then sees the live show. You know, someone watches a short, visits the site. Somebody listens to the podcast and comes back a few days later and reads the article. And this is how it genuinely really works. So it's not one dramatic leap, but it's like an accumulation of exposure. And, you know, you look at this and you think, wow, okay. And that's where I think most B2Bs got it wrong for years. I'm not saying you, it's us. We've all got it wrong. We've expected the kind of activity to produce this instant human conversation and an instant demo, instant meeting, instant deal. And everything's been judged through, I don't know, the buyer should behave like a shopper standing at the till in a supermarket. But enterprise buying, we all know, doesn't work like that, never did. So you kind of look at the critical part, yeah? 640 downloads. They weren't gated. There's no forms, no forced registration, no handing over of any personal details or thank you, someone will be in touch. It's just a straight download. So you've got to think, well, okay, I hear the 600. So what does that mean? So for us, it means that 600 businesses know what we do. And they know the website. They know what we think. They know how we analyse the problem. They know where to find us. They know how to contact us. And that's critical. Will they do it straight away? No, of course not. But that's not the weakness. That's an absolute strength. You have to kind of let go of this. The old assumption, the Martech assumption, is that someone shows you some kind of interest, and you've got to capture. You've got to capture them immediately. You've got to put them in a workflow, score them, nurture them, and hand to someone with a headset and CRM platform. And buyers, I mean, especially CEOs, we don't want that. Yeah, they want the information and education. They want to assess the thinking. They want to self-serve, remain anonymous until they're ready. If you think about how you do things, we do things. You know, that's why books still sell. You know, they've not been chucked in a dustbin. People have not stopped buying books. But you wouldn't expect a publisher to phone up a CEO because he bought a business book. Nobody's expecting like the author to ring up and say, "Oh, I saw you bought chapter 1. Can we book 15 minutes? Have a chat?" I mean, it'd be ridiculous. But that's exactly the mindset of what we as B2Bs have all adopted. So it treats every tiny expression of curiosity as a trigger for us to get involved. Some kind of intervention. Same applies to podcasts. You look at the kind of the podcast phenomenon. So why do people listen? Well, it's just entertainment, isn't it? Well, maybe. But in business, people are immersing themselves in a familiar voice. If you get my drift, like that kind of line of thinking, the way of thinking, the way problems get analysed, and they're kind of comfortable with that person's worldview, and that really matters. I mean, in a big way. I mean, if you look at this, you look at TBPN. OpenAI just bought them. OpenAI just bought them. It's the Technology Business Programming Network. 250 million. 18 months they've been going. Because they understood the value of capturing that attention in a format that people were prepared to spend time with. I mean, some of their podcasts and shows, they're like 3 hours long. So they understand that long form content and thought has value. And it's even more true when you're B2B with a product that solves a serious business problem. You can't just knock out something really quickly. So, that's kind of the news. Is the things that we have been doing as B2Bs? It's changing or changed. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it ain't what we've been doing because people and businesses are not doing enough business. And so the bigger point about all of this is it's all about open access. And if you understand this whole thing about open access isn't giving away too much. It's about building familiarity, credibility at scale. And that's exactly why today's subject matters, because once you see start seeing these download numbers, you see how people are actually behaving when the content's left open. You start to realise why gated content slows down enterprise sales. So, I mean, the point here is that you've got to see, well, what else is there? What else is there about this? And I think that if you look at why it gets slowed down, well, first of all, is that if you gate it, it causes friction at the wrong moment. You think about the psychology at that point. Buyer is curious, yeah? And that's a good thing, great. He's curious. They've seen something, a post, a clip, comment, something like that, recommendation even, I don't know. And they're interested enough to click because they want to learn something. They don't want to buy. They don't want to book a demo or anything like that. Or sit through some sales call just to learn something. And then they hit a form that, I don't know, demands that they want their name, address, email, telephone number, inside leg measurement, company size. Sometimes project timeline, sometimes what's your budget? It's like, come on. I mean, it's staggering. Because what that says is before we let you see this content and whether you're going to determine whether it's even worth your time, we want you to tell us who you are, where you work, what you do, how important you are, and how we can chase you down afterwards. And marketers, they've normalised this to the point where they think it's sensible. It's not sensible. Totally self-centred. It's based upon the assumption that the vendors need to capture data, and it's more important. That's more important than the buyers need to explore something privately. I just, you know, you kind of look at this bit. You know, the whole thing that people want to self-educate. They want to self-serve, self-educate. Yeah. Want to remain anonymous, calculate the ROI. And then speak to a vendor. And that's not us inventing anything new. It's not some new law of business. It's how we, as CEOs, business owners, founders, whatever, have been behaving and evaluating something important for decades. That's how life is. So if you're thinking of, looking at changing some kind of core revenue system, you don't want someone phoning you because you downloaded a 2-page PDF. Yeah, you want to look around and check things out and understand, and you want to read it and watch and compare, think, talk about it internally. And then, when you're ready, you might reach out. Might. But at the end of the day, gated content is predicated on the opposite. It says at the moment someone's curious, you can pounce on them. Bring them slowly by the neck. But everything slows down because most people, me, especially me, I switch off. Forget it. How dare you call me? How dare you chase me down? How dare you tell me that I've been on your website? This is another problem. Big problem with gating content. And this is a bit just laughable or bizarre when you want to think about it. The entire premise is that your good form, your good content, the good stuff is all behind a form. The premium insight, the premium guide, the full case study, hidden value, blah, blah, blah. So I say that's true. So your best content is hidden behind a form of gated content. Then by definition, absolute definition, your best content is invisible to Google. So that means your strongest thinking, your best explanation, your most useful material, the very thing that could create visibility in the market can't be indexed. Yeah? It can't contribute to any kind of organic discovery in the same way. And it can't help people find you naturally. So the tactic defeats itself. So you hide your best material in order to capture a tiny percentage of people who are willing to surrender their details. And in doing so, you reduce your visibility of the one thing that could have helped you reach a wider market and discover you in the first place. I mean, it's proper counterintuitive, but that's what we've all been convinced to do for years. And then there's the whole kind of lead narrative. Person fills in a form. And suddenly it's called a lead. It's not a lead. It's name and address. It's just a name. Oh, okay, it might be a company name or someone curious. But it's only somebody who wanted a document. Probably has no intention whatsoever of speaking to anyone this week, next week, next month. Who knows? But when that information gets inside the business, that becomes a lead, gets counted, gets reported upwards. CMO says, we generated loads of leads from the website. Everybody claps. I mean, what's that? What on earth does that mean? And what does it do to the business? I heard a story. CMO, yeah. He said, we've got 400 leads. All come through our gated content demand gen pages. And it was called up at sales kickoff as evidence marketing was working. You know what's coming next. Not one deal. Because the so-called premium content behind the form was scarcely more. I say scarcely. It was a teaser. The buyer had actually been conned into filling out the form for something of like zero value. So yeah, form got completed. Trust was reduced instantly, not increased. 3 paragraphs on the page, 4 paragraphs on the form, on the download. Another story, which is even worse, another CMO, 6,000 leads. An international SEO platform, 6,000 leads. Sounds blinding. But the salespeople who were supposed to benefit, and I knew someone who actually worked there as one of the sales guys, supposed to benefit this flood of information. Nobody got one deal from it. Nothing creating a pipeline, no revenue, nothing. So this is where you can very easily say, leadership gets misled. This whole marketing, MQA, marketing qualified lead logic, all that kind of stuff. And if it's not marketing qualified lead gen logic, form fill logic, all of it creates the impression of progress, and everyone's like happy days. Oh, look, the numbers are going up. Activity is visible. Look at the dashboards; they're great. But the buyer has not moved any closer to trusting you than before. No additional conviction in anything that they've seen or done. It's simply got shoved into a system, and us as CEOs and buyers can feel that. We sense it. We can see it, straight away. You look at what people are doing now. Yeah. The layer on the kind of like the current environment, and we've now got AI dialers, AI written emails, AI scraping tools, reverse IP lookup and intent platforms, and all these automated sequences. All these businesses are looking to hunt down browsers, and it all signals the same thing in the market, or to the market. We're more interested in extracting your data than respecting your buying process as an individual. And who actually benefits from that extracted data is marketing and not sales, definitely not sales. So that's why the gated content slows down enterprise sales and SME sales, not because the forms are evil in themselves, but because they reveal what's wrong with the mindset. And they say, the vendor's impatient. They say, but the buyer isn't. And that's where you've got these like two tempos. They just collide. It's like slows down or stops. Kicker, real serious stuff. And I meant, like before, right at the beginning, excuse me, I mentioned some quick fixes. But the first thing you've got to do is you've got to review your existing content, your blogs, your articles. And you've got to see which of those actually attempt to educate your prospects without just alluding to the product being a benefit some way. And they've got to include case studies, but also how these companies have actually generated an ROI. So your content's got to be genuinely useful. I mean, us business people, as you know, are always on the lookout for new ideas. That's why we watch live streams. Yeah, that's why we do this type of thing. Yeah, and we also listen to podcasts. And the reason we listen to podcasts is we might be in the car for an hour. So that's kind of like the first thing. And the second thing is you've got to get rid of your forms, your marketing automation forms. Yeah, you've got to get them off your website. And if you're using pay-per-click and routing browsers to a landing page with a form on it, rework them so the browser can access them anonymously. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're generating loads of leads, you could be, guys talking nonsense. Yeah, we're getting loads of leads from this. It's great. Prospects are really happy, want to give out their details. And they don't immediately unsubscribe, or they give you the main telephone number of the business so you can never get through to them, or they give you the info at email. And basically, but if you're, mean, if your BDR is making loads of appointments for your salespeople, carry on. If not, the next bit is going to be quite interesting, because you're looking at all these products and the processes that we're expected to use as the precursor to the all-important phone call. You've got to look at the maths. You've got to look how it actually works and how it affects us, how it all fits together. So if you look at the if you kind of look at how the sales are structured, because gated content has always been connected or joined at the hip with BDR follow-up. Yeah, so you've got your pay-per-click, you've got your download, you've got your forms, you've got information gets squirted into your CRM. BDR follows up, and the hidden assumption behind the gated content is that once you've captured the details, sales development, or the BDRs, take over. Somebody phones, somebody emails, somebody sets some kind of sequence up, or it gets triggered somehow. But basically, somebody works the lead. So if you want to test that assumption, see, one of the things about doing this is that you press you've got all these buttons. You go, oh, that's what's supposed to be on the screen. That's what I want you to look at. It's just the next title. I can be pressing these and moving forward and go, oh, I forgot to do that. Never mind. But we test that assumption with a bit of maths, okay? Because your prospects, if your prospects are related to your total addressable market, which of course they would be. If we said, so you're going to work with me on this. If we said you have a total addressable market of 10,000 businesses, so you're talking an enterprise, right? So in the UK, there are 212,000 businesses with 10 to 50 employees, 38,000 with 50 to 250, and about 8,000 with 250 employees or more. So depending on what you sell, you could say that in practical terms, your total addressable market could be 10,000 businesses, quite reasonably. It's not a problem with that. So if we now look at the technology curve, we also know that 10,000 of those 10,000 businesses are not all going to be relevant and ready at the same time. And that's why the curve comes in. It's really important. So the innovators and early adopters, we just use this. Move this out of the way. I just want to show you where I'm going with this. Lose pen. So here, this section here, this critical section here of your innovators and early adopters, your enthusiasts and visionaries who are up for reading and assimilating information. These are your excitable prospects. These are the people you want to sell to, that you are going to sell to first, always. So this data goes back, and it's been honed over, I think, decades. 2.5, 13.5 equals 16%. Okay? So the innovators and early adopters are the people that are most likely interested, sooner rather than later. So 16% of the market, 10,000, 1,600 businesses. That is your realistic active opportunity pool that you're bringing something newer or different to the market. So let's look at the phone calling part of this whole equation. A BDR business development rep will make about 60 calls a day if you're lucky. So the current success rates are around about 300 to 1, give or take, of finding somebody who might be interested in your product. Some people say the ratio is even worse, but be generous. We keep it at 300 to 1. That means 300 calls to find someone in an interested company who's willing to have some kind of conversation. And let me be really clear, it's not an appointment. That's somebody that might be interested. That's not a demo booked. Yeah, it's not qualified pipeline, nothing. It's just someone, a human, not hanging up. So if one BDR were trying to work through an active 1,600 potential buyers, so how long would that take? 33 years. 33 years. That's, you can be thinking, wait a second, how's he working it out? You have to work it out 300 to 1. Because the part of it, people are going to be in, not available, and so on. We'll come on to that. And the bottom line is it exposes something so completely absurd about the way us B2Bs have been told to think. We've been encouraged to, we've been encouraged to imagine that a large total addressable market coverage can somehow be achieved through a mixture and activity of some BDRs and a bit of gated activity, bit of demand gen. But the numbers don't support it. Absolutely don't. So say you've got a salesperson and you want them to have 4 appointments a week. It's not a big deal. 4 appointments a week. 4 proper conversations, yeah? And if you've got 2, that means you're going to need, I'm not sure if I need to go on to the next slide, but bear with me. So there's 8 appointments a week. So depending on the conversion of assumptions, right, you're going to need a team of 16 BDRs to reach them, to keep them busy. You have to, I mean, it should stop everybody in their tracks. Should stop everyone thinking, wait a second, 16 BDRs, you've got to be kidding me. Salaries, national insurance, order management tools, CRM seats, dialers, data recruitment, training, attrition, office overhead or remote overhead. You ain't getting much change out of $1 million just to keep 2 salespeople busy with meetings. So the bit that people haven't kind of joined up is that they're kind of blinded by this activity and the calls made and the emails sent and all the leads, supposed leads, sequences run and all the kind of, but the core economic reality is dreadful. It's jaw-dropping. And just jaw-dropping inefficiency. All to achieve, this is interest. This is kind of the interesting element. All to achieve something that broadcasters solved decades ago, because they're looking at audience thinking. The word audience, not prospect, audience. And we both know sales has always been a numbers game. We know that. Broadcasting, always been a numbers game. Advertising, always been a numbers game. The difference is that B2B never joined those numbers up properly. Broadcasters began measuring audience size and frequency, response and performance, all that kind of stuff. And B2Bs measured like the cold calls, the marketing qualified leads, the CRM stages. And the wrong metrics became normal. So what percentage of your TAM actually know you exist? of that total addressable market, do you think they know you? Do you think they actually know about you? Do any of them see you regularly? I mean, what percentage is actually or can actually learn from you? Because they're the numbers that matter. Only if a sliver of your market ever sees you. I mean, all your downstream metrics, it just support invisibility, if you know what I mean. And that's an interesting way of putting it. You're trying to harvest something from a field which has barely been planted, which explains this obsession with gating and follow-up and so on. And that's why it's just so misguided. Because it assumes the issue is capturing people, when in reality the issue is exposure. And once you realise that, I would say that a huge amount of B2B orthodoxy starts looking like fiction. Because manually telephoning your way across a total addressable market and hoping like demand gen, lead gen, ABM, pay-per-click is going to make a difference, it's not a strategy. It's just coping. And so I think that, you look at the illusion. I mean, it's definitely an illusion. Because you look at what's on offer. You've got to think, how did B2B get into this process when it thinks like forms, workflows, and lead scoring, and all the different ABM layers and dashboards? It's some kind of natural answer to new business development. And in my view, it's because B2B's bought into the B2C logic through the whole MarTech software and MarTech advocates. Marketing came in with a promise. Build your list, segment your contacts, and nurture them automatically. Score their behaviour, push them along a journey down a funnel. And it all sounded really sophisticated, sounded kind of digital and modern, because it's all software driven. And people assumed it must be measurable and therefore it must be right. But the examples that have been used to legitimise these were consumer-based or B2B to C. Like any of the big tech companies. You think that they're B2Bs, but the biggest markets are consumers. And also environments like insurance and travel, automotive, kind of broad volume transactional markets. Like I said, even with some tech markets. But they're kind of really, they're selling into like, it is the consumer buying dynamics. But enterprise B2Bs, it's not like that. But still, once the platforms are in, that whole culture started to wrap around the tech. And that the content became a means of getting hold of details and information. And websites, they're there to collect information. And marketing teams became operators of software. And so when that kind of promise started to fail, underperform, the industry did what industries often do, which is they invented another layer. And that other layer was ABM. So when a CEO would say, this automation thing doesn't seem to be delivering, the reply was not, maybe the strategy's wrong or the core premise is wrong. The reply was like, are you using ABM? And at the time, this back like 2016, the CEO would say something like, what? What are you talking about? And so the CEOs and businesses were saying, we not only do you need the content for the campaign, you also needed to communicate to every single stakeholder in that account as well, not just content for that potential prospect. So it wasn't one or two people. In some cases, it was like up to 19 people, 19 stakeholders And so then you get things like this with your funnel. We've all seen them: top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and so on. It's nonsense, because this is the propensity to the marketing love. we love an infographic, don't we? So they knock out these infographics. You go, look, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. Less than 1% of people that go through the funnels actually convert. But these originated in the consumer market. It was Lafley was the president. I can't remember his Christian name, but his surname we'll call him Mr. Lafley. Was the president of, I think it was Unilever, I think. And he coined this thing called the zero moment of truth, first moment of truth, second moment of truth, ultimate moment of truth. And this was a sequence that people would go through that would, as consumers, you'd recognise you had a problem. Zero moment of truth. First moment of truth was you recognised it and recognised that there was a potential solution. The second moment of truth, I think I've got this right, you recognised that there was a company that could provide that solution to you, and you started engaging with them. And the ultimate moment of truth is when you recommended that company because you bought from them. Top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, customer. It ain't any different. And I think that when you look at it like that, it shows that businesses have actually been misled, I think. Not I think, I know. They've been misled into thinking that we've all got to follow these examples. And so, the marketing industry's got everyone literally jumping through hoops. But they actually agree, all between themselves, unless you're kind of out and about, that no one actually really knows what's going on. Because all the decision makers stay quiet, stay silent. They self-serve, self-educate, remain anonymous. And you'll love it. You'll love this. It's called the dark funnel. I mean, you couldn't make it up. They keep doing the same thing over and over, hoping for a different result. Einstein didn't say that, by the way. But promising CEOs a different result all the time. Whilst between themselves, within the industry, they know there's a problem, but they don't know how to address it. Because, I mean, even looking at the information that I've got on this particular slide, I'll read it. The reason I'm reading it is because we've got a podcast. We've got a podcast, and people listen to this on the podcast. I just want to read it out for the people, for the benefit of the people that are going to hear this on the podcast. So it says B2B still rely on demand gen, lead gen, ABM, pay-per-click, and cold calls. Less than 1% convert. The average annual recurring revenue full-time equivalent is about 80 to 90 grand in the UK. Not enough. And 91.6% of all businesses fail within 10 years. If you've got a bootstrap company, which is these figures, so you've got 20, 30, 50. 20% the first year, 30% the second, 50% the third, go bust. By year 10, 91.6. If you've got investment, 40% go bust, 80% or 85%, I think it might be 80, fail to achieve their own targets, and 95% don't make the investors an ROI. So there's a problem here, but it's my view. It's conveniently being avoided. Don't talk about it. And so you look at the next one. You look at this. I won't make it massive because there's so much data on it you couldn't read it. But half of all marketing, SaaS. Start again. Half of all SaaS is marketing. A little while ago, when this was done, I should have put the date on there. So it's a year or so ago. So it was before all the AI stuff came out. But there were 30 plus 30,000 plus SaaS products on the market. 15 of them, 15,000 are marketing related. So, like the response to all this is pretty shocking, because it was add more kit, add more software, multiply the complexity, more assets, more segmentation, more orchestration, tooling, and dashboards, and so on. And if it didn't produce the results that they were promising, the blame landed somewhere else. Where was that? I wonder where that was. Yep, salespeople got a kicking. So product marketing fit, messaging, SDR execution, anything but the possibility that the actual architecture was wrong in the first place. And that is why I say B2B companies have been conveniently, deliberately shielded from the reality. And like I said, you look at the numbers. I mean, 15,000 marketing platforms, and B2Bs have been told year after year that if the numbers are poor, the answer is better utilization of the platforms. But if the platforms were institutionalized, or had institutionalized the wrong behavior? You have to think, but you really have to think about that, because we are guilty of doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different result next month, next quarter. So if this whole marketing exercise has institutionalized the actual wrong behavior, and what if, I don't know, turning marketing into a software management exercise has actually alienated the buyer? Whatever this dependency, because we know there's all these statistics, you can Google all of this. 20, 30, 50 SaaS platforms just made all your different teams busier, didn't create more demand. Another staggering statistic, you look at the wider business failure context, for want of a better way, CB Insights long highlighted the marketing related reasons. 52% of them marketing related reasons for business failure. And like I said, 20% of businesses fail in the first, 30% fail in the second, 50% in the third, and by year 10 you're up to 91.6. And that's all research done by Harvard and the FT. And so whether you're a bootstrap company, whether you're an invested company, most people hope for the best. Hope and hoping is that's it. And different companies, again, GP Bullhound kind of primary analysis on this. 80, 90 grand a year annual recurring revenue. So it's not hard to see why everybody feels under a load of strain. You've too much cost, too much software, too much theatre, and not enough efficient market exposure. And basically now, to make matters worse, I think to make matters worse, you've got this AI emails and AI calling, enrichment software, sequencing at scale, which means the market is now being told we can't even be bothered to get real people involved. We'll just chuck AI at it, and it's going backwards. And so, we are human. People buy people; they always have, and basically, we want this experience because we get body language, we understand it, but it's all kept in the dark. And voice matters. Think about voice. I mean, we know instinctively, politicians have voice trainers. They've been doing that for decades because the human being on a screen either builds trust or repels it. In my own view, if it is live, like this is, it can look, and it does look and feel authentic, kind of warts and all. But if it's over processed, and can come across as being fake, people sense it. Sense there's something being hidden, because you wouldn't be picking up a bottle and going, oh, I don't want to make too much noise there, or whatever. You wouldn't do it, because you want everything. Everyone wants everything to be perfect for that video, that perfect delivery. And that's why we can all recognise when it's when you've got an AI video, perfect skin, perfect background, perfect everything, and you look a bit closer and go, no one looks like that. So what are they hiding? I'm just having a drink. People don't do that on video. So the thing is so when companies ask why their content, their campaigns, and automation doesn't create traction, I think the answer's not that they need another MarTech layer. The answer's probably closer to doing what humans want, doing what us humans like openness and consistency, and not just a load of capture mechanisms. And that's why I say gated content's not just a tactic, it's a symptom of a deeper problem. And a whole generation, a whole generation of marketers has been taught to route everything through software. And there's got to be software every single touch point. And it's wrong. I say it's fundamentally wrong, because there's a staggering amount of proof that demonstrates it, illustrates it, day after day, week after week, after month, after year. And the outworking all of that is your bottom line. And that's why I say retraining is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. But how would you go about it? Because you've got to look at attempting to retrain an entire go-to-market teams. Where would you even start? The simple answer is that the people involved, they have to start thinking differently, not superficially different. It's not a matter of like tweak this or tweak that nurture flow or that that funnel element, but they got to think kind of fundamentally different. And they've got to start from the premise to understand what's gone wrong and why it's gone wrong and what the buyer behavior actually looks like, and why self-education, anonymity, and why all of that matters, and I suppose why total addressable market visibility matters more than lead count, and why exposure has got to come before engagement. And the thing is once that kind of logic lands with people, and they can see that, they can start to see, I can see where this is leading. I'm starting to get it. And that's why we've created the salesXchange course. There's I like this. I've always liked this. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. I haven't got my hand on my face just because he has. I take that away. But Buckminster Fuller. Yeah. And the thing is that what are we looking to do? We're not just looking to flog a bit of software. We're saying that there's a different way of doing things completely, because the other one it should be obsolete. It's not just obsolete. It is not relevant for B2B. It's critical to get that. If you're selling insurance or cars or holidays or whatever, marketing automation platforms, demand gen, lead gen, ABM, pay-per-click, great. Happy day, very clever, very, very clever. B2B doesn't work. So that whole transition, that change can only happen if there's a complete understanding of what's gone on in the past, and to understand the creativity required to change something for the future. And so the first thing, I mean, the course, of course, is going to be my first recommendation. Not because I'm just trying to put a product pitch in this, because I can do that anyway, but because businesses don't need another random tactic. They've got to understand, or they've got to have a catalyst to change the existing understanding across the board. Otherwise, they'll buy infrastructure through some kind of ideology or lens that the old assumptions are there, which will just create the same problem again. But with these kind of tools, what we've seen in the past, we know that's how we keep doing things. We keep do as you're told. I've bought this as a CEO, tell my team, do as you're told, go and use it. And they go, well, it doesn't work, or don't, whatever. But the critical thing about the course is that it's actually delivered it's all online. And so there's 6 sections, 20 modules, 189 short videos, 30 hours of content. So someone can do it in a month or in a week if they're focused. You know, it's up to them, entirely up to them. In addition to the course itself, there are 80 worksheets and downloads and so on. So if you get a couple of people to complete the course, which is what I reckon, I do think that's the right thing to do. That's when you've got to say the fun starts, because if you don't see this as fun, you don't do it. They can bounce ideas off them, and they've got worksheets and content and loads of stuff to help guide them. So they're not starting from scratch. They've got everything they need. But the most important thing about this is that they can see the waste. They can see where exposure's been too low. They understand why they would need hundreds of prepared graphics and assets and text assets. I mean, I am talking hundreds and hundreds. There's a reason behind that. And also why something like this, weekly live environment engagement, changes the game, completely changes the game. Because it enables 10, 20, 50, 1,000 people to get to know, like, and trust you. So it's really important for everyone to understand why open access documents are important, the clips, the podcasts, the shows and so on, all of that stuff. It's not content marketing in the old sense, but part of it's an operating model or operating system, which is what we've got. Yeah. And I think I said about a couple of people doing the course. I would say that the CEO and maybe the VP of sales should do the course first. But if you've got a genuine, you see where I'm going with this. If you've got a genuinely open-minded CMO who thinks entrepreneurially rather than defensively, then great, include them too. Definitely. But to be honest, most marketers have been trained down a path where MarTech isn't just a set of tools, but a SaaS. It's a belief system or a religion even. Yeah. So expecting their immediate acceptance might be met with a bit of resistance. I don't care. Say that quietly, because it's what's needed. But the course itself is an important part of the process, because it's the reason it's so important. Transformation. You may have heard these before. Transformation fails. Lots of transformation processes fail, but we're not looking at putting in tens, hundreds, thousands, whatever, different laptops or iPads or whatever. Yeah. This is different. This is just a restructuring of what. So it's transformation or restructuring. It doesn't matter what you call it. But if a business just tries to put the product, the foundational structure in without in kind of internal alignment, it's going to mean that one person's got half the picture and the other person's defending the past 20 years. And marketing would be trying to justify what it's bought and what it's been using, and sales is still frustrated. And then leadership goes back to the same old, which is hoping that there's some kind of silver bullet. And that combination is unstable. We can't have that. So what needs to happen first is you need to have this proper buy-in through genuine understanding. And you know as well as I do, selling is about getting people to believe your way of thinking. And that's the kind of the why regarding the course. You've got to do the course first. So you can see, from this particular slide, there's automated certification. So you do the course, finish them, answer the questions, automated certification, CPD certification at the end of it. So nobody has to do any babysitting or micromanaging or anything else. So that really the course is the first stage. Excuse me. So where does that leave us? Well, that brings us to here. So this is I've got to do this properly this time, because before, every time I've done this before, I've been too far over. So I've been like that. So you couldn't see what was on the screen. It just looked a bit messy. Moving over, I've got to move my microphone. And the reason I use this microphone is because the audio is infinitely better, especially when this gets transposed and put onto podcast. So there you go. There's the reason behind it. So the whole thing about this is the salesXchange operating system, and the OS basically automates and orchestrates every single element needed to achieve that total addressable market scale exposure. It's the assets, publishing, live show environment, pathways to this kind of what we call structured activation and engagement, and the telemetry. Monitoring everything. It's complete set and forget discipline, and basically ultimately the ability to generate qualified meetings from sustained visibility rather than harassment. And there's another factor that people shouldn't really ignore, and it's this kind of combination of the course and the operating system transforms sales, the marketing, and the customer success, the entirety of that setup in a business into something that is far, far leaner and far more profitable than anything you've ever experienced before. So once you stop trying to force this market through this kind of software mediated funnels and so on, you start to be able to reevaluate team sizes, their roles, their territories, the cost structures. So in simple terms, you stop paying people and platforms to stimulate the demand and start building an environment where the market can see you and learn from you. And that's absolutely critical. Absolutely critical.
If this changed how you think about GTM, you're just getting started. Explore the full Revenue Reset series and join us live next week.
These things happen. I'll come on to that in a bit. So the whole point is,
you're just getting started. Explore the full Revenue Reset series and join us live next week.
Should come up again. I've got to show you this. Let me just pause that. So I have one of these things which is called Stream Deck. I'll just let you just show you that. So you have that there. So I have this thing here. If I press that button there, that's the outro. And I did that by mistake. And that's why I say, I could get all embarrassed, red-faced. I'm not. Because these things happen. And the point is that, even going back onto my prompter script, that I might have got a bit, I just need to go back to there. Okay, so I've just turned the thing off. Now I'm going to turn this here. I'm going to turn this off. So a CEO, watching this, and the point, what I'm getting at is, I just need to. Now my buttons have stopped working. So I wonder why my button's not working. Try that again. Well, never mind. I've only got a few slides left. The bottom line is when you're, you see, I've got to recompose. So as a CEO watching this, my recommendation is pretty straightforward. Don't start with another platform. Don't begin with another kind of another software platform or anything like that, or a form-related strategy or another agency just promising better lead generation. Just like stop. You've got to begin with an understanding. You've got to take your time and check out, even looking at our website and looking at the CEO section and looking at the audit. There's a data fill form. I know I said about forms. This is different because this is the logic for that is it's discovery. And so if you understand the logic first, then it helps helps you grasp everything else. The bottom line is if you want your team to know what I know, and this is where the course comes into it, kind of compressed like 40 years into a few hours, into 30 hours, with an outcome. Honestly, with an outcome that will reposition the trajectory of your business. And that's why the course is the right place to start, without a shadow. So, once you kind of grasp that and bring that into play, I think that it ceases to become like a leap of faith. I think that's the way it's not about that, because it's a natural next step, and I think because this is a significant transition from looking at what people are doing in the first place, which is the whole demand gen, lead gen, AB and pay-per-click stuff, and looking at a foundational infrastructure that runs everything. That's the point of the show, to say we all know it doesn't work, but really up to now, you could say, well, you just keep doing it because there is nothing else. And we would all be right. I just want to try something because I'm surprised this stopped working. So let me just do something, because I just want to show you a slide. And if I can get this functioning, we should be good to go. So I guess go to SuperSource. And go back to there. And then try this. So bear with me. And this is this the great thing about live? Well, I don't know. We have to look at this and just wonder why it's chose to stop working. No. Might, the classic hit. Well, it might need a reboot. But the thing is at least it's not our platform. It's just the streaming process. But the bottom line is gated content slows down enterprise sales as well as SME sales, because it just kind of shows that impatience and genuinely a misunderstanding of a buyer's behaviour. And so as CEOs, we kind of we do recognise it in ourselves. You know, that open access accelerates that trust because it respects how we behave if we're looking for information. And when you combine all of that thinking into the right model, you don't just improve the marketing. You show how a business can create new business altogether. It changes the whole infrastructure, and it's all supposed to be, and not supposed to be. It all happens at scale. So the conclusion to all your work and the reorganisation of your GTM infrastructure, your go-to-market infrastructure, and implementing a new business, is you get a sequence of dashboards. I can't show it right now, but I will post this up on when I do the video. I'll put the dashboard up on one side, and it shows you how much exposure you've achieved based upon impressions and reactions, engagement, and most importantly, the completed forms that book the meetings that generate the proposals. And that's if you imagine you're reaching out and communicating to a very, very large market, and a percentage of them are watching you and looking at you, and they could from anywhere in the world say, do you know what, I think I'll find out a bit more about this, and they go onto your site, they complete the discovery, and a meeting is booked. How many meetings could you cope with? Because that's where we're at with this. And with everything happened and presented to salespeople, with all of the work done, everything prepared for them in preparation for that meeting, what does it mean? Well, it actually means nobody gets behind, and you can cope with more business than you've ever had experience with. And that's what's critical. Well, apart from the end bit, and my buttons have chosen to stop working. I'm sure there's a very simple explanation. But that's it for me for this week. And I hope you come and you join me next week. And I hope that we've maybe sown some seeds, because that's really the main thing. If you have any queries or questions, you can get in touch with me online, our various places online, our website, and so on. But I think that's it. I'm going to press the button again. I'm going to see if it works. If it doesn't, I just have to cut this off and go, see you next week. And I'll tell you next week what the problem was. Anyway, bye for now. That's it.
If this changed how you think about GTM, you're just getting started. Explore the full Revenue Reset series and join us live next week.